A young boy sits alone in his room, tears streaming down his face, not because he's hurt, but because he believes he's not good enough. He looks at his classmates and sees everything he's not: faster, smarter, richer, more talented. This boy's name was Ethan, and his story will change the way you see yourself forever. By the end of this tale, you'll understand why comparing yourself to others is the biggest mistake you can make, and how accepting who you are can unlock your true potential. Ethan was a 17-year-old boy living in a small town where everyone seemed to know everyone's business. Every morning, he would wake up and immediately feel the weight of not being enough. At school, he watched Mike effortlessly solve math problems that made Ethan's head spin. He saw Sarah paint beautiful artwork that made his own sketches look like a child's doodles. He noticed how Tom's family drove the latest car, while his own family struggled to keep their old one running. The pain of comparison consumed Ethan's days. During lunch breaks, while other students laughed and shared stories of their achievements, Ethan would sit quietly, convinced that he had nothing valuable to contribute. He tried to be like Mike by spending hours on math problems, only to feel more frustrated. He attempted to paint like Sarah, but his brushstrokes felt clumsy and worthless. Every effort to become someone else left him feeling more lost and inadequate. His grades began to suffer, not because he lacked intelligence, but because he was too busy focusing on what he couldn't do instead of what he could do. His confidence crumbled like a house of cards in a storm. Ethan's parents noticed their once cheerful son becoming withdrawn and sad, but he couldn't find the words to explain the battle raging inside his mind. One autumn afternoon, feeling particularly defeated after another failed attempt to excel in areas where others shined, Ethan found himself walking aimlessly through the town park. The leaves were changing colors, creating a carpet of gold and crimson beneath his feet. He sat on an old wooden bench, his head in his hands, wondering if he would ever be good enough. That's when he noticed an elderly man sitting on the next bench, feeding pigeons from a paper bag. The man had kind eyes and a gentle smile that seemed to understand pain without judgment. The old man, who later introduced himself as Grandpa Joe, had been watching Ethan struggle from afar. Grandpa Joe began to speak, not directly to Ethan at first, but to the world around them. He talked about the trees in the park, how each one was different, some tall and strong like oaks, others graceful and flexible like willows. He pointed out how the oak didn't try to bend like the willow, and the willow didn't attempt to grow as massive as the oak. Each tree simply focused on being the best version of itself. Then Grandpa Joe shared a story that would change Ethan's life forever. He spoke about a pond where different creatures lived: fish that swam gracefully through the water, birds that soared elegantly through the sky, and frogs that could do both but mastered neither completely. The old man explained how each creature had its own unique gift, its own purpose, its own way of contributing to the world. He told Ethan that a fish spending its life trying to fly would always feel like a failure, missing out on the incredible joy and mastery it could find in the depths of the ocean. And bird trying to swim like a fish would never discover the freedom and perspective that comes from soaring high above the clouds. As Grandpa Joe's words sank in, Ethan began to realize that he had been like that fish trying to fly. He had been so focused on being like Mike or Sarah or Tom that he had never stopped to discover what made him special. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a spark of hope ignite in his chest. Before we continue with Ethan's transformation, I want you to think about your own life. Are you trying to be someone else instead of discovering who you truly are? If this story is resonating with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to Mala Tales for more inspiring stories that can change your perspective. And don't forget to share this with someone who needs to hear this message today. The conversation with Grandpa Joe became a turning point for Ethan. Instead of focusing on his weaknesses, he started paying attention to what came naturally to him. He noticed that while he struggled with advanced math, he had an incredible ability to understand people's emotions and help them feel better. While his paintings weren't technically perfect like Sarah's, he had a unique way of telling stories through his art that moved people to tears. He discovered that he had a gift for listening. When his classmates were upset or confused, they naturally came to him for advice. He realized that his empathy and understanding were not weaknesses, but superpowers that could make a real difference in people's lives. With this new perspective, Ethan stopped trying to compete with others and started competing with himself. Each day, he focused on becoming a better version of who he was yesterday. His grades improved because he was no longer distracted by comparison. His confidence grew because he was building on his natural strengths rather than fighting against his nature. Years passed, and Ethan's transformation was remarkable. He started a small business helping people in his community solve their personal and professional problems. His natural empathy and listening skills made him incredibly successful. People traveled from neighboring towns just to seek his advice and guidance. But here's what's even more beautiful about Ethan's story. He didn't become successful by trying to be someone else. He became successful by embracing exactly who he was meant to be. His business grew not because he copied someone else's formula, but because he offered something unique that only he could provide. Ethan never forgot the lesson Grandpa Joe taught him in the park. Whenever he met young people struggling with comparison and self-doubt, he would share the wisdom that changed his life. He would remind them that if a fish tries to fly, it will always feel like a failure, but if it focuses on swimming, it can own the whole ocean. Now, I want to ask you something important. What ocean are you meant to own? What unique gifts are you ignoring because you're too busy trying to fly when you were born to swim? Take a moment to think about this and share your thoughts in the comments below. Today, Ethan is not just successful in business, he's successful in life. He's happy, confident, and at peace with who he is. He understands that his worth doesn't come from being better than others, but from being true to himself. He learned that comparison is not just the thief of joy, it's the thief of purpose, potential, and peace. The most powerful lesson from Ethan's story is this: you are not meant to be a copy of someone else. You are meant to be an original masterpiece. Every person you admire, every person you compare yourself to, they cannot offer the world what you can offer. Your combination of experiences, talents, perspectives, and heart is completely unique. Stop trying to be the best version of someone else and start becoming the best version of yourself. Accept your strengths, acknowledge your weaknesses, and understand that both are part of what makes you special. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs the original you. Remember, in the grand symphony of life, every instrument has its part to play. You were not meant to sound like the violin when you are a piano. Play your music, embrace your rhythm, and trust that your unique sound is exactly what the world needs to hear. Your journey of self-acceptance starts today. Stop comparing, start embracing, and watch how your life transforms when you finally accept who you are.